Alright, hey there. This is a video to show how to operate the MaxScript that I wrote to import Soul Calibur 3 models into 3ds Max. There are some very major concerns and problems with the importer. I didn't plan to release it, but I do get the occasional bump about it. So I'm just going to release it because as time goes by, it's going to get forgotten about. Now, first off, I didn't want to post it because it had three major problems with it. Number one, the geometry is screwed up. Number two, the textures are screwed up. Number three, it's a pain in the ass to correct this stuff manually. I had posted on NTAX, which is a file reverse engineering forum, but I didn't really get any help from it. So before it gets too old and I forget how everything was working, I just want to preserve the information that I know now and just upload it, and at least people can use it somewhat, right? Okay, so you can download it from here. Of course, I don't expect you to register here to get it, so I'll upload it and I'll put it in the description in the video, okay? Alright, so let's get to it. So you'll get the MaxScript, you're going to get it probably in a zip file, you're going to want to extract that, and you'll get an MS file. You can open it in a few ways. You can go to Open Script and open up here in the editor. You can hit Tools and Evaluate to run it at that point. Or you can just directly open and run it by just going to Run, locating the script and running it. In either case, you're going to get the GUI that pops up. It's going to look like this. Now we need to find a model so we can import it, so I'll cover that real quick. Okay, so let's go to my directory here. Okay. I have some ROMs that I've collected in here. Okay, I have PlayStation Soul Calibur 2 ISO and PlayStation 2 Soul Calibur 3 ISO in the same directory, but the tool only works on Soul Calibur 3, okay, and not Soul Calibur 2. Also, I was made aware after I made the tool that there's a arcade version that works on arcade machines. I have the ISO here, I believe, but it's not ISO, it's like a CHAD file or something, and it was just very annoying to extract. It's very technical. Often I got corrupt data images, which was even more frustrating. So that's why my directory is called Penis, because it was just being such a dick and it was pissing me off. Eventually I did get the files extracted. I tried one model file. I can confirm that it worked. So if you are interested in looking at the Soul Calibur Arcade Edition, then it might work. Being told that it has more models in it, I can't confirm that. That's just being what I'm told. Alright, so that's it. So we're going to open up the Soul Calibur 2, sorry, Calibur 3 for PS2. I got so tongue-tied. I'm going to be using 7-zip to open that, but you can use any kind of application that supports ISO. In here, you're looking for the asset package, which is going to be called root.ok. You're just going to extract that. Like I already have mine, so I'm going to close this. You're going to extract that, though. It's going to be the largest file, about 2 gigabytes. And you're going to use another program called OLK Explorer to open that. Mine is here at the bottom. I've just renamed it to PS2 SE3 so that I don't accidentally confuse it with the other versions. Alright, so we're going to open up the... it's a little slow here. There we go. I'm just going to copy this directory and paste it here directly so I can get to here quicker. That's the root that we got from the ISO. I'm going to open that. It's going to take a second to load that, and we're going to get a file tree which we can then navigate through to find the models. So I extract this, or not extract, but expand the tree. You will see that we have more trees or expandouts with more files. As you can see, it's very nested, and there's a lot of files in here that are not named. They're just indexed, like 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So to navigate this correctly, you actually need to find some sort of map or legend to find the content that you're looking for. Fortunately, there is. If we go back to here, there's a post by Oofmatic. He's a very dedicated Soul Calibur modder, still does to this day. He went ahead and actually mapped out all the important character models and weapons and animations in the OLK file so that you can find certain assets. So if I bring up the tool, he is saying that you need to navigate to file 7, OLK, which is this one, expand that. And you're looking for, if you're looking for a character in particular, for example, Mizuragi, he is file package 9 and 10, which are these two. There are two package files because Mizuragi has two costumes, his default costume and his alternate costume, so costume 1 and costume 2. So if I'm looking at costume 1, I want to expand package 9, Okay, I'll get more files. It's not explained here, but if you want the model, it's the first file. Okay, otherwise it'll be the largest file out of all the files in the package file, typically the first one. Now we're going to hit export and save this to a folder. I'm just going to make a project folder called test and save that there. Now we can exit the tool. Okay. Now I'm going to navigate to 3ss Max, where I have the MaxScript. Now we're ready to import a model. Now this right now is geared towards importing a model fast, within a few seconds. So if I just show you to that real quick, we'll go to our test folder. There's our file. I'm going to hit open, and within a few seconds, Mizoragi will appear on the screen. The problem is to make it import fast, I had to disable a lot of features on the model, such as the bones don't move anything, so that's probably not something you're interested in. And you can see that the model is very jagged and not smooth. Okay, so to enable all that stuff, you're going to want to enable all of the options. Okay, but it's going to be increasingly slow. Within probably 3 minutes it'll take to import your model, depending on how fast or slow your computer is, which is a shame, but that's just the way it is. So while it's doing that, I'm actually going to show you the folder while it's extracting, because one of the options we have enabled is export textures. However, there's a problem with the textures. They don't export correctly. They are corrupted. So that's one of the other major problems we have with this game, is that the textures have to be acquired from the emulator. They have to be ripped from the emulator and then assigned manually back to the model, which is very laborious, unfortunately. So I'm going to open up that model. It's going to take a few minutes to import, and I'm going to explain the textures to you while it's doing that. Okay, so I'm going to switch over here. You can see here in the background, while this thing is running, see my hourglass, it's actually exporting textures alongside that. So I'm just going to put this into thumbnail view. So you can see the textures here. The textures are, some of them are converted correctly. For example, this one. The ones that did not convert correctly, my program puts a cross or an X through them to signify that they are corrupted, so that these need to be updated. The premise behind this is that it will show on the model, and you can spot it by eye, and then you can quickly identify this texture, for example, is bad and needs to be replaced. And that helps to identify that in the emulator as well, so you can dump the correct texture. Okay. So for this, we're going to be using a program called TextMod. Okay. TextMod allows us to substitute a texture that we can select manually with a green texture, so it's easy to spot different materials on the model. Okay. And along with that, we're going to be using PCSX2, which is an emulator, a PlayStation 2 emulator. Okay. That's free. You can download PCSX2. TextMod is free as well. The only caveat with PCSX2 is you have to supply your own BIOS files. They're illegal to distribute, so you have to find a way of getting them yourself. Alright, next we're going to go, we selected this, I went to logging. I configured a path here that it's going to dump to, and I've set this for TGA, and I set this to enter. I'm going to prepare to get this running. While I explain this, this is just going to be ready for us when we're at that step. I'm going to save this to that folder there. Alright, and I need to do that so that 3ds Max can build file paths so that when I try to enable the textures, they'll show. So now I'm going to go to View, Show Materials in Viewport, and I'm going to select Shaded Materials with Maps. And that's going to render the textures onto the surface of the model. So now I'm just going to show it to you. You can see the model here. Let me just hide the rest of the stuff here so you can just see Mizoragi. You can see that some of the surfaces have these weird corrupt looking textures, and you see there's a clear X across the texture. That's to help us indicate that there is a bad texture there. Obviously, you don't have to look at the model to see that the majority of the textures are actually corrupt. There's many of them. There's actually, I think, 42 here, and some models have more, unfortunately, where the majority of them, probably over 80% of them, need to be corrected, unfortunately. And that's the case here. We can see a lot of them are actually bad. That's unfortunate, but the only method available to us is to actually get it from the emulator. So we're going to have to do that piece by piece until we can restore the entire model, sadly. Alright, so for example, we're going to do something simple here. We can see here on Mizораgi's face that there's a few things that are corrupt, but For example, the ear here is easy to spot. We can see a cross through it, and we can see that that needs to be replaced. So we'll replace it by ripping the texture from the emulator. So I'll show that procedure now. So far I've set this up with TextMod to open up the emulator, and it's in logging mode. It's going to dump to this texture or folder here, so we can acquire his ear texture. Okay, run. It's going to start up the emulator, and we can see how that's going to work. Okay. I've set up a save state to make this quicker. It's going to, or a load state, so that we can get right into the menu, so we don't have to go through the load screen. Now I've gone through and I've unlocked all the characters here. If it helps, I can distribute my memory card that you can insert in here if you want, if you don't want to actually beat the game yourself. Otherwise, you can implement cheats and you can just unlock that with a cheat code. Okay, I'm going to just double click here to expand the view so you can see what's going on, and I'm going to navigate to Mizuragi. So TextMod inserts instructions on the top left that says that you use the plus and minus key to toggle through textures and the enter key to save them. So I can toggle around with the plus and minus keys, and various materials, textures on Mizuragi are going to turn bright green, so I can identify which texture is which texture. So this is very helpful for us to identify what textures are corrupt, need to be replaced, or where they need to be assigned rather. So for example, we're going to find the ear. There it is, I passed it. Okay, the ear here is highlighted in green, and I know I need to dump this texture, so I'm just going to minimize this for now. I'm going to press the enter key, and what you're going to see is the texture is going to be created here. Okay, so I'm going to press enter, and it's going to log that texture as a TGA as I set it up. I'm just going to do another one to show you. I'll do, I went the wrong way, I think. Let's grab his face, for example. I'm going to dump that one. Okay. Now, usually for myself, I dump all of them at the same time, and I process them, and I assign them by just making educated guesses. That might not be easy for you, as you might not be familiar with what the textures should look like and where they should go. So maybe just do a couple one at a time until you get comfortable with the assignment of it. Okay. Alright, I'm going to close this for this example. We're going to assign these textures here. The face here, I just capture this because I know that it's already correct over here, but I just want to show you that there's a problem. This has to do with the emulator. The emulator will dump a basically a big endian version of the texture, which means that the red, green, and blue channels are swapped. Well, specifically the red and blue channel are swapped. In addition to that, for some reason, the emulator palletizes the texture in a memory space that is texture size of 1000 by 24 by 1024. So you have to do two operations. You have to crop the image and correct the colors, which can be a pain in the ass. So what I've done is I've made a tool I will also include to just to simply cropped and swap the RGB. Okay, it only works on TGA. It might have problems on pure black textures because it's not able to detect the cropping range. So be aware, some textures you might actually have to edit in a photo editor. If you're using a photo editor specifically, you need to learn how to swap RGB channels and how to crop. So you need to look and research that, look up some tutorials for your particular editor. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on here, and you're going to see the application is going to look for any TGAs in the directory and correct them. So now we have Mizuragi's ripped face and his converted face, which are identical. And of course, now we have the ear that's no longer corrupt, which is awesome. So we can do this a couple ways. We can find the texture here that's corrupt. Okay, we can rename it and just drag this over and overwrite it. Or you can simply just include this stuff in the directory and just reassign the texture to the new texture name, which I'll show you how to do in 3ds Max. So in 3ds Max, you have to access the editor. There's two editors. There's the slate editor, which is commonplace, and there's also the compact editor, which used to be commonplace in the old version of 3ds Max. So I'll be using this in this demonstration. So I'm going to click on the eyedropper. I'm going to click on Mizuragi's head, and it's going to show a breakout of his submaterials. In this case, it's easy to spot. I have a dark purple and a light purple. I think the dark purple is in his mouth. That's probably his texture, mouth texture. And the light one here is the one on the ear. So I can just click on here, and I can swap the texture. So we do this a couple ways. I can just do drag and drop. I can just go zip and drag it, okay, and his ears replaced, or I can actually go into the slot itself and replace the full path that's in the slot. Either way, it will reassign the texture, and now it will be corrected, okay? So that's the basic overview of how to correct the textures, okay? One last thing to go over is the last problem that was discussed, which is the flip faces. They are still present. They are mitigated by an algorithm that I tried to implement to automatically detect and flip them, but it doesn't work all the time. So I'm going to just quickly review how you can try to resolve this manually. So first I'm going to turn this into performance mode so you can see this without the textures. Actually, let's just do this. Let's turn this off like that, okay? So you don't get that weird glare. Alright, so you can see here I have a missing triangle here around the eye and around the nose. The nostrils are missing. These are actually just flip faces that need to be corrected. But there's smoothing on here which prevents us to modify topology. So as soon as I go into the Edit Mesh tab, you'll see that the smoothing gets instantly lost because it's being stored in the modifier. So any changes to the topology will actually basically disable the modifier, and you will lose the smoothness. Now, if you had enabled this option right to user propped, that means the normals are actually stored on this last tab in your properties menu, which means that you can use the reapply normals button to regenerate a whole new edit normals modifier. You cannot just copy and paste it. As soon as the topology changes in any way, it will break the modifier and you have to regenerate a whole new one. So to correct these faces around the nostril and the eye, what we need to do, click on your model, you're going to cut the skin. Now it's going to be copied to your clipboard, so do not avoid using the copy function because that will overwrite your clipboard. So don't do that while you're doing this. And you can delete by left-clicking and selecting the garbage can here. We'll delete that modifier. So that way you don't have that modifier anymore. It's okay, it can get regenerated with this button. And we're going to use a second pass. This second pass will weld the model before doing the algorithm to try to determine the face direction. So I'm going to apply this button now. And it may correct the problem areas, such as the eye tear duct and the nostrils, in which case it did. Those are now corrected. So now we can reapply the normals by just simply clicking on this button, Reapply Normals. Okay, and now the smoothing is back. And then we can just click here and paste that back on top. And so now the skin weights are back to normal, and the smoothing groups are corrected, back to normal, and the faces are now corrected, rather. Okay? Alright, there you go. Last thing I have to show you, last button on here, is just to adjust the height. Usually what I do is I select the feet and I just click on this button. It says get the lowest vertex, and it will copy that vertex to the clipboard. Now I can just select the entire model and I can move it on the Z axis, and that will move it up. So when I press enter here, it'll move up. So when I was porting the models, I needed my models to be above the ground plane, and so I just needed a way to just move everything above the ground plane. You can do this simply just by using a bound box, but because there was other geometry that went through the floor, that was ineffective. So you have to manually select something that would make contact flat with the floor, such as the feet, and then click this button and it will find the lowest vertex point and provide that to your clipboard. Okay. Alright, those are the features. Before I go out, I'm just going to show you a completed model so that you can see what that does actually look like. We'll just grab one of these models. I think, which one have we worked on already? Let's look at Sophidia. I think I'd like that one, if I remember. Let's open Sophidia. Now, I started porting these models into Miku Miku Dance, which is kind of comparable in its engine, which is kind of nice. So the models fit pretty well. You can see here, this is one of the models. It probably took me about 8 hours to correct the textures and bring them in the Miku Miku Dance and then tune the textures to fit the shaders better. But this is the result that I got. I feel pretty happy with it. I think it looks fantastic. I try to mimic the shader maps and also the rim light that you would have seen in the game, and I think it fits not perfectly, but well enough that it captures the essence of the original game characters from Soul Calibur 3. So I actually rather like it. Yeah, so that's what you would get out of your efforts. If you feel like it's laborious, I do understand. It is, but the payoff is nice. The models still kind of hold up nice today. They're still beautiful models, and I think they're worth keeping. All right, thanks for watching, and good luck with your importing. Later.